Hello, everyone. I'm Herminio again, Herminio Bicabusog Jr. And again, today I'll be presenting to you a lecture sermon entitled Babylon and the Gospel. I would shout out to Texarkana Seventh Adventist Church who will be watching and listening this lecture sermon. Again, the title is Babylon and the Gospel. And today you will find out, is there really something good in Babylon? My answer is yes. The story about the Babylon is something good for us because according to Revelation 14, chapter verses 6 and 18, 8 says that, and I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on earth, and to every nation, kindred, and tongue, and people. And there followed another angel saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all the nation drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Don't you know that the word gospel in the Greek New Testament could mean the good news? But the question is, where is the good news in this text? If you try to look at the things underlined here, that the everlasting gospel is that Babylon is fallen and is fallen. And this is the second angel's message that we need to cherish, that we need to listen, that we need to live by. Remember, this message is for everyone. It is not only within the church, but to every nation, to all people, to all tongues, kindred. That the good news is Babylon is fallen and is fallen because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. So there is something good news that we need to see and feel and experience. And the second angel's message is telling us that way. So let's start in Genesis. Let's just try to go back in time and see what is really Babylon. In Genesis 9, verses 21 to 25, it says that and Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father Noah, and cursed be Canaan, and as a servant of servants shall be unto his brethren. Ham is the father of Cush, Mitzrayim, Put, and Canaan in Genesis chapter 10, verse 6. And out from this people came out Cush. And Cush is Nimrod, is the father of Nimrod, who is known as the mighty hunter before the Lord in Genesis 10, verse 9. And Nimrod, if you try to trace back in time, is Noah's great grandson. And Nimrod is the builder of the cities of Babel, Erech, Akkad, and he built these cities in the land of Shinar. He also built the kingdoms like Ashur, Nineveh, Rehoboth, and Kala. So Nimrod, in this chapter, while Moses wrote it with so many names mentioned, Nimrod was highly appreciated. Nimrod is really a good person in the sight of the Lord because the description itself, he is the mighty hunter before the Lord. There's no problem with the name Nimrod. There's no problem with being a Nimrod. He is so good. He built cities. And there's nothing wrong with that. And it came from, remember, it came from someone who is cursed. The father of Canaan, which is Ham. But out from these miseries, from this curse, came out somebody who is so mighty, who were able to build kingdoms, cities in the ancient times. It seems that there is something good out from, what is curse. That's why sometimes we cannot judge people by saying, hey, there could be no future in you. But out from the descendants of Ham. Here comes Nimrod, the builder of great cities and great civilization, right in the land of Shinar. Remember, Shinar is like, it's a plain, but not necessarily mean just one place, but it's considered as a plain. And if you try to dig in history, it is somewhere in Iraq at this moment. Now, in Genesis 11, verses 1 to 9, Babel and his people, we could try to look at it as, and then the Bible describes us in the book of Genesis that this describing Babel and the dwellers in them. In verse 1, it says that the earth is of one language and speech. And for me, it's an advantage. Having one language, you can communicate with each other freely because you can understand with each other. There's no problem with it. They dwelled in the land of the plain of Shinar in verse 2. But take note, instead of using stone, instead of using mortar, they use brick and slime to build the tower. And for me, there's something wrong with it, right? They have the best material available. They may have stone, they may have mortar, but they use the, softer materials. Take note of these things because later on we'll try to look at some implications of these materials. Then they build the city and the tower, and who stopped me reach to heaven and make a name. Remember, the name of the descendants of Ham is, there is some reputation, a bad reputation. They are, remember Ham saw the nakedness of Noah. There's some, bad meaning of the name of Ham. But they try to make a good name out of it by building cities. And then remember, the city and the tower was built by the children of men. And if we try to look at it, the children of men could mean the descendants of Adam. It did not say built by the descendants of Ham. It doesn't say it is built by the descendants of Nimrod or the people of, the relatives, the people of Nimrod. No. And then verse 7, so that nothing will restrain them. Now, that is the Babel and his people. But if you try to look at it, see, what is the action of the Lord? The Lord came down to see the city and the tower. In the past, in the ancient Near Eastern context, kings and people build cities and build a tower at the center of it because they believe that when they build cities and tower at the middle of the city, their gods, their deities will come down and bless them. But there's something different in the story of the book of Genesis because the Lord came down to see the city and the tower in verse 5. But the Lord said, behold, that the people is of one language, all of one language. And take note in verse 7 and 9, God confounded the language and that they may not understand one another. It seems that the Lord here is the villain, right? He confused the language of all the earth. He is like an intermission of a bad intermission of what is something good. Remember, people is united with the same language. They are building the city. They are building a tower, hoping with the same understanding with the ancient Near Eastern people that the Lord of heavens will come down and bless them. But here comes the Lord came down really, but did not bless them, but instead confounded their languages. See? Now let's continue. The term Bini Ha'adam in Genesis 11 verse 6 teaches us that the term Bini Ha'adam or the children of men, the word Ben or Bini is children, Ha'adam is the Adam, or the sons of Adam, could mean the man with the entire humanity because Adam represents humanity. So in Genesis 11 verse 6, it refers not only again to the descendants of Ham, but the entire people, the descendants of Adam. In Genesis 11, God babbled all the mankind, all of Adam's descendants, and nobody is exempted. We are not exempted. We are of the descendants of Adam. whether we like it or not, in the biblical context, in the creation story, we are the descendants of Adam. And God babbled us. God babbled them in the past. And as a descendants of Adam, God babbled us also. God confused us. Take note that all of us, all the descendants of Adam, it is not only those outside the church, it is not only us inside the church, everyone outside and inside, we're confounded by God. See, look around you. Even we are in one church, even if we are in an Adventist family, still there are things that confuse us. There are things that we really disagree on. Even how good is the condition, still we tend to disagree on things. See, even in our churches, even in our organizations, we tend to disagree on things. And at some point, we are confused. But there is something good news on confusion, on being a Babel. As we continue, the Tower of Babel are like a larger version of the ziggurats of the ancient Mesopotamia. Yeah, as I told you, it is common temple structure in the ancient Babylonia, built at the center of the city to encourage their deities to come down. But they get a different result. God came down and babbled them. God confused them. The term Babel or Babylon appears more than 200 verses in the Bible, from Genesis to the book of Revelation. More than 200 verses. And now, the term Babel or the term Babel is used in the Old Testament for the English translation in the word Babylon. I mean, the term Babel is the Beth Lamed in Hebrew. It is spelled as Beth Lamed or Babel. Is used in the Old Testament for the English translation of the word Babylon, and in the Greek was Babylona. It is used throughout the Bible for more than 200 times, from Genesis again to the book of Revelations. Now let's jump in the time of Daniel. So see, the Babylon in the book of Genesis goes on and on until we have another time where we see Babylon. And this time, it is in the time of in Daniel. So Babel continues. It did not die right there. It did not stop. Even when after God confused the people, when they scattered around the world with different languages, they did not understand. They never united again. However, in the time of the book of Daniel, Babylon again became so significant in the world history. It was a time during Nebuchadnezzar too. Now, in Daniel chapter 4, there is something interesting here, because Nebuchadnezzar II dreamed of a tree in the midst of the earth, of great height. It reached into the heaven, and sight can be seen in all the earth. All flesh was fed of it. The watcher of the Holy One came down from heaven and cut down the tree and let the beast under it get away, leave his roots in the earth, and ban it with iron and brass. Now, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, I would like to emphasize one thing here, that there is some similarities and some parallel when it comes to how we look at the Babylon in the book of Genesis and the Babylon in the book of Daniel. In the book of Genesis, there was a tower and in the midst of the city. Here, there was a tree of great height in the midst of the earth. The tower is in the midst of the city, but here the tree is in the midst of the earth. And remember, it reached into the heaven. What is the reason why they build the Tower of Babel? Because they want to reach the heavens. Here also, the tree reached into the heavens, and the sight can be seen all the earth. So meaning to say, all the people around could see this tree. And remember this one, all flesh was fed of it. There is no exemption. Everybody was fed of it. Everybody. There is no exemption. All flesh was fed of it. Not only the people outside, not only people inside, everybody. But the watcher and the Holy One. Here comes the villain again. And somebody came down, the Holy One. The Lord of heavens came down. And what happened? He cut down the tree and scattered the beasts that eat and live under the shade of the tree. And scattered them away in all parts of the world. See? It seems that the story was repeated again. Somebody came down and acted as a villain, scattered him around. So the meaning of the tree here is in verse 22 is the Babylon. The cut down of the tree is the kingdom will be given whosoever God wanted to give. However, take note, there was an iron and a brass that was, girded, or God put a belt or a band of iron and iron and brass on, on the roots. In Daniel chapter 2, the element that could represent iron is Rome, and the brass that could represent the Greeks. So if you try to visit the Vatican City today, most things that you can find in the museum are those things that are from, are from the empires of Rome and the empires of Greece. In our traditional understanding, that Babylon, the modern Babylon, is the Vatican. However, that is only how Adventists understood, right? The rest of the world may not be that is not the understanding of the entire world. I'm not saying that there is something wrong with that understanding. But as of the Seventh Adventists, we understood that it is the present time Babylon. Now, if you try to go there, it seems that they have all the collections from the cultures of these two great empires of Greeks and of the Romans. But to tell you, is it only the Vatican or the rest of the world? Remember, the tree represents Babylon. And Babylon in the book of Genesis does not refer only to a particular group of people, but the Ben Ha-Adamah, the descendants of Adam, that includes us. And here, look at it. Those people, the beast that is living under the shade of this great tree represents all flesh. That also includes us. It doesn't refer only to a certain group. And mind you, there is good news in here. This is the second angel's message. Now we are that during the time of Daniel, that the people all over the world are enjoying the things that Babylon provided them. Everyone. And truly, even Daniel was enjoying the goodness of Babylon during the time. Now, in the Babylon in Daniel 4, we remember that again, the other meanings of it is Nebuchadnezzar was cut down. But the good news is Nebuchadnezzar returned back to the Lord. Nebuchadnezzar was struck with a mental illness called boanthropy, which believes that he himself is a cow or an ox. And this is his Babel. This is the Babel of Nebuchadnezzar. For 7 years he suffered, and he suffered that kind of sickness. And historical records are void of any entries between 582 BCE to 575 BCE. It seems that it supports that Nebuchadnezzar's reign was halted for 7 years, just like the cutting of the tree. However, it was still banded with a belt, a band of iron and of brass. It seems here that Babylon was preserved by the empires of Rome and Babylon. Yeah, and the Romans. To tell you, Babylon, the Akkadian Empire, the Sumerian Empire, the Chaldean Empire, really provided us something very important. Don't you know that the Babylonians, the Akkadians, the Sumerians invented writing, the, 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 the calendar, and so on, agriculture. So there is something good from this empire and was adopted by the latter empires like Greece and Rome. And the cultures, the inventions, the product of Babylon was preserved by the Greeks and the Romans. So it seems that Babylon did not die, cannot die easily. Again, in Daniel 4, God used his illness to make Nebuchadnezzar acknowledge that the Lord Almighty was sovereign over all the kingdoms of the earth. God Babel Nebuchadnezzar. God Babel Nebuchadnezzar. So, take note. If God did not confuse Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar will not come to the Lord, will not come to God and repented and be good again. However, the problem is the descendants of Nebuchadnezzar again turn their eyes away from the Lord. And that's why in Daniel 5, Babylon was fallen because it was given to the Medes and the Persians. Belshazzar, the son of Nebuchadnezzar II, did not humble himself. And while they are partying, there was a writing on the wall written by the hand of God, mene, mene, tekel of our sin. What is the word mene? God hath numbered thy kingdom and finished it. Tekel, thou art weighed in the balances and art found wanting. Peres, thy kingdom divided and given to the Medes and the Persians. Remember the word repeated twice. Mene, mene. God hath numbered the kingdom and finished it. Repeated twice. It seems that it is not the perfect finish or end, right? Because when the Hebrews write something, they try to make it and repeat it 3 times to make sure really that what is finished is really finished. But it seems here that it is not yet finished. Even Babylon was defeated and conquered by the Persians and the Medes. Now, fast forward, let's go to the book of Revelation. Here comes Babylon again in the time of John the Revelator. And there Babylon continues, and there followed another angel saying, Babylon is fallen and is fallen. Right? The fallen term repeated twice. That great city, because she made all the nations, remember, all the nations, of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. I belong to a nation, you belong to a nation. The word nation means ethnic, where the term ethnic comes from. And all of us has our own origin of ethnicity. We belong to a particular ethnic group. We belong to a particular nation. No one is exempted. We drunk. That's why we cannot say that only those that are outside the church, maybe us also inside, we drunk. We have drunk. But it's an everlasting gospel. It's an everlasting gospel. That's the second angel's message. Look at here. What is common with Babylon in Genesis, Daniel, and Revelation? Let us try to look at the attributes. Number 1. Okay? Who is Babylon? In Genesis, it is all the nations. It is the Ben Ha-Adam, the sons of Adam. In Daniel, it is all nations, all flesh have eaten and live under the tree, which represents Babylon. Here in Revelation, all nations drunk. Nobody is exempted. So who is Babylon? Who is Babylon? It's us. It's us. We cannot deny it's us. Confusion is not only for the people outside the church. Confusion also is also for us. We are not exempted, but that is an everlasting gospel. Another attribute is the heights. Tower represents a height, but remember the things that they used to build the tower is weak. They use breaks and slime. See? And the tree was cut down and the roots was bounded with iron and bronze. Again, remember, iron and bronze could represent Rome and Greece. And in Revelation, look at this. The term he megali is feminine in gender in the Greek New Testament language. In the Greek New Testament grammar, it is feminine. The Greek term means, the term is feminine, the gender in the Greek language, and the megali is where the term mega comes from. It refers to age, then it will be old. It refers to quantity, it will be numerous. When it refers to height, it will be long. So if you try to go and read the Bible, particularly the New Testament, you will see that the term megali could refer to these terms. Again, with age, it could represent long for quantity, numerous, and height to long. Now look at the materials. Weak materials, brick and slime. Look at in the book of Daniel, when it is cut down, the roots is weak. It is in the lowest part of the tree and could be rotten easily. But it was bonded with iron and bronze. Iron and bronze again represent Rome. In Revelation, the term Babylon is feminine. That represents the woman. The term Babylon there is feminine. It represents the woman. So the clay, the roots without a tree is weak. And the women connotes weakness even in the Bible times. Women's role is to procreate. The gospel writers utilize women to criticize lack of faith and insight compared to men. In Daniel 2 verse 2, kingdoms before the coming of Jesus will be of iron and of clay. And remember, iron and clay will not be mixed together. And that is the material used to build the Tower of Babel. And what is the clay? Sometimes we forgot to mention the clay. Sometimes we stop on the iron, which is Rome. And when we try to interpret the prophecy in the book of Daniel chapter 2, we stop only in the iron. But here comes the clay, right? Now, in Revelation 13, the beast of the sea could represent Papal Rome in the traditional in the Adventist traditional interpretation, conventional interpretation of prophecy, and the earth represent the United States and all the democracies of the world. So the question is, where are we standing? Where are we standing? Daniel is in Rome. In Babylon. We are also standing either on the iron or of clay. Iron represents Rome. When we try to look at the parallelism between Daniel 2 and Revelation 13, we will say that the iron is parallel with the beast of the sea of papal Rome, and the clay is parallel with the earth in Revelation. That could mean the United States, that at the end, United States and all the democracies, that it could mean that at the end of history, before Jesus Christ will come, he will be able to meet these two kingdoms, the kingdoms of iron and clay. Remember in the book of Daniel, after the iron of clay, here comes the rock from heaven and smash the image. And the rock symbolizes the kingdom of Jesus Christ. So Jesus Christ will come. When he comes on the second time, when he's coming, he will meet these two kingdoms. The kingdoms which is of Rome and the kingdoms which is of clay. He will meet the beast of the sea and the beast out from the earth. These two kingdoms. So where are we standing? We belong to these kingdoms. Being a Seventh-day Adventist could not be exempted to this kingdom. Same as with Daniel. Being the man of God could not be exempted, but he is the citizen of Babylon, whether you like it or not. So to sum up, Genesis, Daniel, and Revelation, there are three things that we can learn. Babylon or Babel represents all nations. It is you and me. Babylon or Babel is proud. They want to reach You know, the heights, they are so powerful. You want to be great. And number three, Babel or Babylon is weak by the materials that they use. Now, what is the good news of Babylon is fallen? The good news is we must fall for us to remember that the supreme ruler of all of us cannot rule the world, only God. Remember Nebuchadnezzar, but his descendants forgets. We must fall for us to remember that we are weak, and even with all the pride we have is not enough. So again, we must fall for us to remember that the supreme ruler is, is not man, but God. That we are weak, and even with all the pride we have is not enough. The confusion starts within us, that even the chosen could be confused, and only Jesus Christ can enlighten us. To end up, instead of building a tower of unity and pride and weak materials of this world for ourselves, it is now the time to give the Lord of heavens all the glory he deserves. This is the second angel's message. Again, instead of building a tower of unity and pride and weak materials of this world, it is now the time to give the Lord of heavens the glory he deserves. This is the second angel's message. Have a good day, everyone.